folks, last month was rough. If you haven't seen last month's video, go back and watch it, because oh my god, I spent so much time editing that. But if you have seen that, then you know that I had 4 fish losses last month. So the tank is going 6 weeks without any fish to maybe mature or something. Like, I don't know what's killing the fish. I don't want any more fish to die. We're going without fish for a little while. That doesn't mean that things haven't been happening in the tank, though. I've got a lot of different coral stuff going on. And stay tuned, I'm going to be reviewing the Aqamai KPS Powerhead and the Seneye Reef monitor, which monitors ammonia and par levels, which is pretty handy. Now that I've had some time to use it, I've got a pretty solid opinion that I'll be sharing. Let's start off with looking at how the corals are doing. We start this month off with some happy and healthy Duncans. Just look at how fluffy they are. And the Goniopora in the background there is also doing well, nice and fluffy. But this particular Zoa colony is continuing to have a lot of troubles, despite being dipped several times now. So I dip it again. And even more stuff comes off. Like, these are like little crustacean looking things. I tried so hard to get them on video. They're just not getting on video. They're weird things that keep falling off. While the Montipora stellata seemed to be doing quite well, this digitata that used to be at the top of the tank started to bleach, and I thought that maybe it was getting too much light or too much flow or something, so I put it down here, but it continued to deteriorate, so it left the tank. And you see at the top a pair of candy cane corals, and they unfortunately also died. They perished when the big ammonia spike happened with the loss of the last fish. But the crab has been doing quite well, and in fact he molted, so I thought maybe he needed a new shell. So I wasn't sure how to handle this. I went to the dollar store and just bought a whole lot of seashells from China, and they were pretty dirty, so I was trying to figure out how I'm going to clean them. And I was doing some experiments with vinegar, and that seemed to work, so I put a whole lot of shells that I liked into this, and the shells themselves are a base, calcium, and the vinegar is an acid, so we're getting this reaction that's cleaning off, like it's actually eating away layers of stuff off of the shells, and that seemed to do a good job of cleaning things up. And I didn't know, I didn't feel like it was my position to pick which shell he should be in, so I figured I'd pick a few reasonably appropriate sized ones and let him pick for himself. So I just threw a whole bunch of shells in there and set the camera on time-lapse to see if maybe I'd see him checking them out. And instead all I got was the Asterita snail doing a little dance on top of him, which is in and of itself pretty amusing. But as you see, some of these shells are just way too big. It's super hard to judge size in this tank. It's kind of hard to describe. Like, everything is actually much smaller than it looks in the tank, including the crab. So there were a lot of really insanely big shells in here. I am nearing 5,000 subscribers, which is awesome, but I'm already setting my sights much further. I want to break it into the mainstream. So to do that, I'm trying my hand at doing those popular YouTube recipe videos. Enjoy. One of my favorite things about Chicagoland are the summers and spring days here, where it can be really hot, but the constant wind keeps you cool. So I present the Midwestern Summer Sandwich that combines these ideas with some spicy meat and cool veggies. So step 1 is to load it up with butter. I have lost over 25 pounds in the last 6 months, so that basically makes me a nutritionist, because nutritionist is an entirely made up term. But this does come out to being less than 400 calories, even with all this butter. Butter is just so much better than fucking margarine. Good to the last drop. Now with that on, you want to get some mustard all over one side, and then squeeze it together lightly so you get a little bit of mustard on the other side. And there's a trick to this where you want to have just a little bit of mustard on one side and a whole lot of mustard on the other. Now on the heavily mustard side, add some Cajun turkey. Now add 1 whole leaf of romaine lettuce that's been chopped up. Don't use iceberg lettuce because that's just complete garbage and doesn't actually provide any amount of nutrition for you. And a handful of black olives because those are tasty. And now you fucking millennials can probably put guac just all over this wherever you want. It'll probably taste pretty good, but I haven't explored that because I do not enjoy guac. Now some tomatoes that add the last finishing touch here are the cooling veggies, and now several slices of spicy pepperoni. Now look at that. Oh my God. It's so good. My mouth is watering right now. Tasty. Things were doing pretty well in the tank, so I wanted to fill it in a little bit more with some more coral. And I went to Reefwise, which is a local reef shop. And this was my first time actually purchasing corals in person, which was a really interesting experience. I had kind of the impression that it was going to be really expensive to do that, and that I was going to get a better deal online. And that's how I'd been proceeding. But I actually got a great deal on all of these corals that were added. Amazon has trained me to think that anything I'm buying in the real world is going to be much more expensive. But these were great looking corals that I was able to hand pick, say, hey, this looks great. Like that hammer, that green bouncing thing in the center was just the most vibrant green thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I got to pick that out of a dozen or so other parts of that species that didn't have that same vibrancy that this particular one had. And there's the crab humping on a stylophora that's also quite neon. And now that the new corals have settled in, let's do a roll call. This first one is an interesting green Monty cap that has red polyps. And although the video is not catching it, that what looks like a white edge is actually pink in real life, which is quite unique and looks really cool. And here's the green, like absolutely neon green hammer coral that as soon as I saw, I fell in love with. I gone to the store anticipating buying a bluish hammer, but when I saw this one, I was like, that is definitely the one that I want in my tank. I wish to Christ it could come through and video just how insanely green this thing is. It's a bit delicate though, so I've got the flow blocked by the rock so that it doesn't break off any of the heads. And in front of that is the stylophora that's also quite green. And you see it's really appreciating that flow. It's kind of like moves around in this great sort of shimmer that looks great. It's subtle movement rather than the more boisterous movement you see in the hammer. And I think that offsets nicely. I'm not sure why the birds of paradise that was in this position previously had died, but I think it might have been just not enough light. So I'm cranking up the light more and more every day, trying to get it to make sure there's going to be enough light for this, because there's clearly a decent amount of flow. And as I rack focus for a third time, you see the crab who finally got a name. My husband named him. My husband liked the naming scheme that I've been using with musicians' names, so he is named after Herman and the Hermits. I think that's the name of the band. Anyhow, he is a character, so he absolutely deserves a name. And as you see after his molting, he is really vibrant red in the bits of him that are red. While we're here, you can see that the green gauntlet zoas are doing well. And these ones in the back are finally starting to open up. There's that one in the center that's kind of opened. That's the most open that particular polyp has ever been, thanks to a lot of dipping. Duncans are doing great as ever. Just bouncing in and happy. And look at the size of Junior there. Oh my God, he is going to be a whole big head soon. And the Monopora stellata is once again just doing its thing. This has been the easiest SPS by far so far. And here's the new rainbow. And you can really see this rainbow Monty with all of its color. You got yellow at the tip, then green, then orange. And on the far right, you can see it even getting into red. And that made this particularly enticing when I saw it in the store. This was the only frag of this species that actually showed all of the colors like that. And here's the Ultraleptoceras that I broke in half the first day I got it. It's still alive. I'm really hoping it's going to do well. Here is the second half, and I'm sincerely hoping that both of these are going to recover and start to grow over the back glass. And I think that'll look really cool because they've got kind of a metallic shimmer to them. This short polyp Goniopora has not been doing well since it got into the tank. It extended its arms and then it started to
kind of looked like a honeycomb, just completely sunken. So I put him up in a high flow area and he started to do better. But this one is starting to bleach, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because this is the ultra rare Goniopora, and it looks like it's getting movement. It shouldn't be getting too much light. Why is it bleaching? This is really bad. I'm freaking out about this. And here on the backside of a rock is the Cephastria that's got a purple skin with green eyes. It looks so cool. And while I was filming all this, I happened to catch a shot of Herman pooping. See how the bubbles come out as that little cylinder came out? Then he finds this poop and decides maybe that's food, because obviously anything that's in the tank is food for him. Nope, definitely not food. You see all the bubbles coming out of his mouth as he's trying to spit out that taste. He's an absolute character. Like, he's always running around, like, just trying to climb up the rocks or whatever. He's always moving, doing something. And as the only critter in here, he's great to watch sometimes. But he is also a hazard to these zoas. As you see, he just kicked them. There's slow-mo instant replay. If you speed it up, it actually, you can see the other polyps also retracting. But if you play that in reverse sped up, you can see them growing. If you do that back and forth really fast, he's laying down a mad beat. I was really worried about this orangish reddish Goniopora, so I put it up at the top of the tank where it would get a lot more flow and light. And you see, the very next day that seemed to work. Like, some combination of those two was definitely helping. I thought it was probably the flow. And I moved the pink Goniopora down to the middle of the tank so it would get a middle amount of light, because it seemed like it wasn't liking too much light. And that also seemed to help. So it was getting a middle lighting and middle flow, and that's the most budding I'd seen in a long time from it. But it still wasn't actually extending its arms. Like, it has arms that could be coming out. And here's a comical look at how much super glue is underneath that Goniopora now from being swapped around in different spots.
I am absolutely determined to keep these rare Goniopora alive. You can see right now the pink one's actually being fluffy. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it's out, it's happy, it's fluffy, and so is the orange one, which was starting to bleach. And I solved this problem by adding in a lot more flow to the tank. So I had one of these Aqamai KPS Powerheads previously, and I liked it. It's small, it's really small, but it is kind of a pain in the ass to get going. But once you get it going, it is this powerhouse that is highly programmable. I tried another tiny Powerhead, the Jabo SW2, and it was shocking me. Like, I was getting an electric shock anytime I put my hand into the water. So I think it was leaking out stray voltage or something. I don't know. Like, I'm not qualified to make the determination, but I do know that whenever that thing was in the tank, I was getting shocked. So we're not using the Jabo SW2s. We're using the Aqamai KPS, and I loved the first one so much. I got a second one, and now with the programming, I can make it pulse together. Like, they're working together. It's awesome. Let me show you the app that is really handy for tailoring exactly the kind of flow you want in your tank. So first and foremost, you're going to know that I'm not getting paid for this review, because I'm going to tear into this. It is a tricky beast to work with this app. It's great once you get it going, but you might not be able to get it going, because if you've only got an iPhone, you are fucked. Like, you cannot get it to create a new program set from existing sets. You got to go in and slowly manually build your own. This is on an iPad that I'm showing you right now. It works on Android okay. Like, I tested it out a little bit. It seemed to be working fine. It wasn't at least crashing like the iPhone was. So here you see I'm on the iPad and it's stuck in this portrait mode, which is kind of annoying. But once you get it going, you can do all kinds of interesting things. Now, you have to manually connect to the Wi-Fi network created by each of the Powerheads. If you only got one, that's easy enough. But it's a pain in the ass when you get multiples, because then you got to keep swapping back and forth between the two if you change anything. Now, once you do have something, though, you can easily load up any of these pre-existing sets,
or you can make your own and edit it. I'll show you what I've got going on right now. The maximum output for this thing is incredible. It's a tiny little device, like it's this big, and it's pumping out over 1,000 gallons per hour, which is great for its size. Now, that's at the flow rate of 100%. You see some of these things are going down to 70 and between 5 and 100. And you can do these pulsing waves, which I have actually made some pretty big waves in my little tank by making a short pulse length of 250 milliseconds and making it go from like 0 or 5% up to 100%. It pushes the water, and it makes a lot of noise and waves. It's kind of impressive, seems kind of dangerous. I'm not doing that. Instead, though, I am maxing it out at 100%, which this advises some crazy things. Like if you look at the built-in sets, this is technically set about 30 liters. So I would be using maybe this 50 liter set, but it's crazy. Like, why would you push it so low? Like, corals are coming from the ocean where they're getting pumped with way more flow than we can produce in these tanks. Like, it doesn't matter how many Powerheads you had, you're not gonna make a wave that's got the same force as the ocean. I wish I could remember who said this, but one guy said that the key to tuning your Powerheads is just keep pumping it up until your fish are pinned up against the glass, and then dial it back a little bit. You really can't overdo the flow. You got to watch out for which corals are getting too much flow, like the hammer coral. If it's getting too much flow, it looks super unhappy, and there's a chance of the little arms breaking off up against the skeleton. So you got to be mindful of that. But since this is going to be a stony coral tank, it's getting blasted. I've got both of these Powerheads now blasting at 100%. Everything seems to like that, especially now that the hammer's down in a position where it's not getting blasted against its skeleton. So once you decide, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, you can create like really detailed programs here for every half an hour. And that might seem like a pain in the ass. It kind of is. You have to go in here and like change every single half an hour of a 24-hour day. And then you can say like, I usually feed at 9 o'clock, so we'll switch into feed mode at 9. And then, crank it up with some constant flow to stir up everything at 9:30. But when you want to change something, there's no like mini profiles that you can change one thing and it affects everything. So if I change the wave here, like let's say I want this to be at 500 milliseconds. I hit save. It didn't change any of the other ones. Like all the others are still at their old pulse size. So you have to manually go through and change every single one of these down to whatever it is that you want it to do. And that can be a pain in the ass. But once you got it done, that's kind of awesome, right? Like you have your own custom stuff happening. I think that's so important. Like I don't know that that's important. I don't have any kind of marine biology degree telling me that it's important. But as somebody who's lived in Chicagoland for 15 years, I'm telling you, it sounds important because like the wind here, if that wind was just constantly in your face like all the fucking time, you would go mad. And I feel like coral and fish would feel the same way if you were constantly blasting them in the face at 100% all of the time. So we've got lots of variation going on throughout the day. I'm even varying the pulse duration so that the waves themselves seem to be coming a little faster, a little slower. It's just some variation throughout the day. I'm never letting it go more than like 2 hours doing the same thing. It's lots of variation that the coral seem to like. I'm paying very close attention, like since it's right next to me, I'm watching all day long. I'm paying very close attention to how the Duncans seem to be reacting. They're big and fluffy and happy, and the Monopora little polyps can be seen bouncing around, and that seems happy and healthy. So all in all, I think that this is cool. I think that this is a great sort of system to keep the variations and stuff like that you want in a tank happening at a relatively cheap price. Like this, you can pick these up for $110 on Amazon. Really good deal for a 1,000 gallon per hour Powerhead. And if you're not trying to cram a whole bunch of stony corals into a tiny box, you probably don't even need 2 of them like this. I'm very happy with that. It's just kind of a pain in the ass dealing with this app. There's no web interface at all. So if you want to know, like, oh, what the hell did I set for 5 o'clock? Well, you got to switch your device over to the Wi-Fi of the Aqamai and then scroll, into this and find, well, okay, at 5 o'clock, let's see, it's 1700 hours. Okay, I've got that set. That seems unnecessary. Like all the other stuff that is in this industry seems to have a web interface that makes life easy. It would be very nice if these just hopped onto my existing Wi-Fi network, like the Apex does, and then it can be controlled from a web interface, which is so much easier than doing any of this. But it is, a pretty good deal. $110 for an entirely programmable power head. I'm very happy with that. After a lot more swapping around, I finally found a place that this pink Goniopora was happy at, where I got the right amount of light and the right amount of flow. But I noticed that this is the exact same flow and lighting that I've got on the Cephastria, and it occurred to me that, oh my God, this is a Goniopora that is self-identifying as a Cephastria. I don't judge. I'm just trying to make sure my corals are happy, and treating this one like a Cephastria seems to be what makes it happy and fluffy. Now, after adding the second Aqamai KPS Powerhead, I was able to put the red Goniopora back down to its original position, and it's getting lots of flow now. As you see, the polyps are extended, even on the bleached bits. It's extending some polyps there, and I'm hoping it's going to recover. While I was cleaning out stuff, I moved the Duncan island so that the additional heads were visible now, and you can see there's a lot of heads coming out of this Duncan. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's a 6th one that you can't see. Those are all coming in. There's going to be 7 heads in this one skeleton pretty soon here. And look at how happy they are dancing around in the water flow. I so love that translucency in the skin. So cool.
It has been over a month since I've had any fish in the tank, but the Seneye is still telling me I've got a bunch of ammonia. That didn't seem right to me, so I emailed Seneye to figure out what was going on. And they replied with some condescending bullshit that just really pissed me off. So I figured, okay, you know what? I'm going to do the science on my own, and we're going to figure out what's going on with the Seneye. So I got myself a bucket of RODI water and started testing. Alright, this is a massive pain in the ass to record, but I am trying to show you that there is no ammonia detectable on the Red Sea ammonia test kit. If there were any, it would be this green. It looks green now because I got this light going through where it's green, but over here there is no green. This is yellow. I've seen this before when it's all the way up to like 1.2. Like it gets a green tint whenever this Red Sea kit has any ammonia. So imagine my surprise when this sample, which came from this bucket of pure RODI water, does not match up with the Seneye, which is reporting that this same sample is 0.02 NH3. Now let's hit the refresh here. We'll get it down to the minute. 0.22 now. So there's all kinds of ammonia going on in my pure RODI water, according to them. Now, the math on this is really easy to work out. The ammonia and ammonium test kits are slightly different, but it's for ammonium it would be 0.2, and for ammonia NH3 here it would be 0.02. It's you just move the decimal place. So this is really easy to test. The Red Sea test kit is accurate down to 0.02, so if it had 0.022, this would be really easy to spot. And you know, I'm not fooling around with this. Like you said, the temperature was 71.6. Let me find my laser scanner thing here. 71.4, 71.6. Yeah, it's in the right ballpark with the temperature. You know, I'm using that sample now for this reading. This is pure RODI water that's telling me is 0.022. But that is garbage because I have 0 TDS coming out of this practically brand new deionization thing. Like this, you see the discoloration on the first chamber? That's how much has been used up. The whole second chamber hasn't been used at all. So if I turn this on, the light adjust in here, you can see my TDS meter. There is 0 coming out of the output. On the input, there's a bunch. About 50, that's really hard to focus. There's 58 total dissolved solids. On chamber 1 to 2, it's 0. And on the last output, it is obviously also 0. So there's no chloramine, no chlorine, no nothing coming through. So where did all this ammonia come from? I don't think it came from anywhere. I don't think that there is any ammonia. I think that this Seneye is just garbage. It's just flat out lying to me right now. And I did the 48-hour, actually it was probably about 50 hours pre-soak before putting it in here. You're supposed to take the cartridge and pre-soak it in tank water. And I did that. So why is it giving me these insanely wrong numbers? I'm baffled by this. Like, when it was in the tank, it was giving me 0.018. And now it's saying in pure RODI water, it's 0.022. While I'm recording, I'm going to put it back in the tank and we'll see what it says. So, this is all one take. There's no editing going on here at all. Shaking it off so I don't get any unnecessary fresh water in there. This is crazy. I've got to put this in. I've got to remove the heater. This is really hard to do one-handed through a camera. I gotta squeeze it in back here, feed that in. Fuck, I hit the stop button, but anyhow, I just fed that in. I'm putting this back in. Alright, and now let's check our readings. 0.02. That temperature is way off. I guess maybe it needs a few seconds to readjust. Let's try it again here. The pH is also way off. There's no way my tank is at 9.8 or 8.4 rather. You notice that it's saying 16 of 20 per hour. You're only able to manually check it 20 times per hour for some reason. The temperature is going up, so I guess it's getting a more accurate reading now of this water. Disappointed that it's not instantaneous. There we go. Alright, so now it's saying that my tank has less ammonia than pure RODI water. I'm so profoundly disappointed. Like, this is an expensive piece of kit that they want an extra $11 per month to use, and it's giving me these wild numbers here. Like, ammonia is the main reason to have this thing. You had one job. I emailed Seneye with these results, and they tried to tell me that the Red Sea test kit is inaccurate, and the way that I had done that whole test in the RODI had broken the sensor. Now, that sounds like horseshit on many levels, all right? Red Sea's been around in this industry for a while. Their whole program is based on a lot of science, so I am not going to just accept Seneye's word that they're inaccurate. Like, that's crazy, okay? We're not even going to acknowledge that. Okay? The other part of this, though, is saying that I broke the sensor because I put it in RODI water. And that's horseshit as well, because as soon as I put it back in the tank, it started doing all kinds of weirdness and then goes back to giving me the same exact reading that it had been giving me for the last several weeks. Okay, if I'm getting one result before I screw around with it and one result, the same result after I screw around with it, then my screwing around with it didn't break it. But I want this to work. Like, I really want this to work because this is an awesome idea. Like, as a product, this is a really good idea, especially for newbies like me who might have weird ammonia issues and random fish deaths. Like, I really want this to work. So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're going to mail me out another one of these slide sensors, and we're going to do some more tests next month. So that has been my month of September. It's been eventful and weird, but it's happening. Like, I'm getting the hang of some of this. The coral are doing great. You'll notice that the hammer is no longer up on that rock work. He's moved down to the sand bed because he wasn't getting enough light on the rocks, because he was kind of shaded by the rocks. Now he's in a place where he's getting a nice, happy amount of flow and lighting, so he's fluffy and everything seems great. The Goniopora are all fluffed out. The Monopora are doing great. The Sophastria is doing the Sophastria things, and the Duncans are sprouting more and more heads. So things are looking up for the coral. I'm really optimistic that I'm going to figure out when my tank is ready to add fish. 'Cause I would really like to add fish to my fish tank, but even more than that, I would like to avoid killing any more fish. Like, seriously, I do not want to add a fish in and watch it die again. Like, let's stop doing that. Let's really take our time, make sure we're getting the Seneye thing figured out, and what tests can I trust. So stay tuned for part 2 of the Seneye review, and hopefully next month I'll be able to show a happy and healthy fish in my fish tank. Take it easy, folks.